Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 4th of July stream. It is Tuesday, the 4th of July, 2023. My name is Carey Holzman. I'm sorry we had a little mix-up there in the beginning and accidentally ended the broadcast just as it was starting, so we'll wait for some folks to realize that we are on a different link because YouTube wouldn't allow me to undo that little mistake I made. And so I was doing something different, and that's what I get for not following my normal routines. In fact, I even have lost it here on my tablet so I can be in the chat room with the rest of you guys. So let me see here. Look over to my channel, over to live, refresh. That's a bummer. There were 74 people in there waiting, but hopefully everybody will jump in here in just a minute. Oh, it's a holiday. What are you going to do? Let's see, I want to go to my channel. And, it says I'm live now. Okay. Phew. That wasn't a big panic or anything. Thank you to Buster, Peter Laycock, who's been a member now for 12 months, over 12 months, contributes 10 pounds. He says, good evening, Carey and Marlena and everyone in the chat. All the best from Bonnie, Scotland. The temperature in Edinburgh is 54 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 12 degrees Celsius. And to all our American friends, I wish you all a happy 4th of July. Thank you, Peter. That's very kind of you. I wish we could trade weather. If you double your temperature, it's what it is here. Sarge Tech with a $5 super chat was the first to contribute. He says, a timely contribution for channel support. Thank you again. It looks like we've got 75 people in here, so that's about where we were before I screwed up. So with the screen so far away, I thought it was asking me something else. I didn't realize it was asking me to confirm that I wanted to end the stream. That it was asking me to confirm I wanted to start it. Of course, it was already started. So anyway, no confusion there. Clear as mud. So today I thought we'd do a build. I mean, why the heck not? You know, I've got some parts that are left over. This is a 10900K, brand new in the box, a Samsung 970 Evo. I've got a previously used Mugen 5 that we used for something. It's got a little bit of fin damage on the sides, but it's very minor. I got some RAM I pulled out of another system that was upgraded. That's perfectly fine. And I bought a brand new motherboard, a Z590 Extreme Wi-Fi 6E from ASRock, because I bought it a while ago thinking, you know, I better get them while I can. The 10th gen isn't made anymore. And so when those boards are done, they're not making 10th gen boards anymore either. So, and then I thought I'll get to it someday. And I guess today is someday. Yeah. Let's see. I was going to look at my content here, and I want to remove that other. Yeah, I see what I did here. That video is 1 second long. That can't be right. Let's delete that so avoid any other confusion. Get that out of there. My apologies again. Just in case you thought I was a robot. See, I make mistakes. So the whole theory of robotics is out. All right. So John Paul Bacon gets it. Says, today is someday, LOL. It is. It's someday. My favorite day of the week is someday. That's when stuff gets done. Stuff that's been waiting to get done. I've got these stack of HP mini PCs still waiting for recipients. And if you're interested in receiving an HP mini PC, these are used computers. They're off lease. They're from 4 or 5 years ago, but they're Core i5, 6500T with 8 gigs of RAM, solid state storage, maybe like 256 gigs of storage. Power brick, Windows 10 installed and activated. And these also have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth in them. They're good until the end of Windows 10 support, which is October 14th of 2025. We'll just call it good until 2026, at which point you will either need to put Linux on it or take it off the internet, because it would become a liability for you to continue using it. Of course, you would have to provide your own monitor, your own keyboard, your own mouse, your own speakers. That's all on you. This is just the box itself. And the requirements to nominate yourself are that you cannot nominate anybody else. You can only nominate yourself. If you're a member of the community, that I recognize your name, if you're blue, if you're green, and you're requesting it and you've not received anything else from this channel, we want to give everybody an opportunity to receive something. And at the same time, if you'd rather not use your one freebie and save it until there's something else I'm giving away and nominate yourself for that, plan it strategically is all I'm saying. And of course, barring anybody in blue and green that aren't requesting these, then we go to the people in white, and then we go for who we think it's going to benefit the most. So if you are not a blue or green member, just simply leave a comment after this video is aired. Don't do it now, but after the video, leave a comment nominating yourself and explaining why you should be picked, right? Because I want to make sure these go to people in need. I'm not trying to send off toys to people that they can just play around with. I really want these first and foremost to go to people who have really old computers. They can't afford a better computer. They might be in a security situation by using an old PC. We want to help them out. Hopefully they'll use it to continue watching our videos and join in our chat room. But of course, there's no obligation to that. These computers are provided by the community for the community. Even the shipping is covered by the community. So recognizable members in the community are going to be selected above and beyond complete strangers who've just popped in and spoken for the first time. But that doesn't mean complete strangers who've spoken for the first time are not eligible. You absolutely are eligible. But I will tell you, the odds of you being selected increase with more familiar you are to me and the community. I'm trying to encourage community involvement. So, while I can't enforce it, I would hope you'd want to be a part of this community because it's such an incredible and amazing community. There is nothing like this anywhere on the internet that I've ever seen. So obviously I want to nurture it and watch it grow and expand while still at the same time not diluting or degrading the overall culture of this community, which is absolutely amazing. And if you stick around long enough, you'll see what I'm talking about. And if you ask anybody who's been in here for a while, ask them, they'll tell you. So today, what I've got is, as I mentioned, I've got an Intel Core i9-10900K, brand new in a box, tape's never been cut. The Samsung 970 Evo Plus, these are $99 now at Amazon, 2 terabytes. I was debating whether or not to buy some more of these now or wait for Amazon Prime Day. You never know what's going to be on sale. But you also never know what's going to sell out. So I thought, you know what? I'll just order a couple more of them because $99. We were paying $300 for these not so long ago. RAM, I've got here some G-Skill Ripjaws RAM, 2 sticks of 16. These are 3600 speed, DDR4, 16 gigs each. They were made in May of 2020, so this RAM is 3 years old, but we're going to recycle it because there's nothing wrong with it. Age ain't nothing but a number. Our Scythe Mugen 5, I don't know if this is going to be enough to cool this, but at least for getting the board prepped and the operating system installed and updated, it should be more than adequate for that. And then I might take the Thermaltake cooler that I pulled out of the Alzai build, and I might put it into the case we're using here today. The case I'm using is the NZXT H510. Now it appears Amazon is sold out of them, but B&H Photo has them for $82. And it takes a full-size ATX motherboard, but it's a mid-tower case. So you can see the appeal for me is the case is no bigger than it really needs to be, but at the same time, because it's a full-size ATX case, it can take mini ATX, micro ATX, and again, full-size ATX. This is a full-size ATX board, and it's not going to be cramped in there. It'll be very easy to work on. I really have been appreciating NZXT's thoughtfulness in their case design, cable management, overall build quality. So because this case has a window, I think it has a window. And because this is a 10900K, it could be harder to cool. Maybe that would be a good solution to move the Thermaltake cooler to, but I won't do that today regardless. We just want to prep the motherboard for today. Avery wants me to check my email. Okay, Avery. So I will. See, my Amazon order is coming. Avery sends a $5 Amazon gift card. It says, happy late birthday, Carey. Hope you enjoyed this Amazon gift card. Well, thank you, Avery, and thank you for continuing to support the channel. I see Paul Garrett's joining us, and Chris Johnson, and Samuel Kowalski. I see Douglas Burchell. There's our friend Peter Laycock. There's Sherry McFarland. Haven't seen Sherry in a while. Chuck D and Wooly G joining us, as is Paul O'Brien. Mortant, 1210. I see Sarge Tech, Boss, Ron Barnish, Chris Johnson, Nick Caffrey, Pete Unwin. LRCX joins us. We all barbecuing today? There's Frankie B. Hey, Frankie, always good to see our friend Frankie. Zach Bischoff, Scott, and Tony. Mark Gaines joining us from Northern Ireland, as well as Bob R., Dan Nelson, Alej Tepej, Andy Kane, Brian Woodley, Gil Garcia, Dustin Fuller, and Arto Resenin. Thank you guys so much for being a part of this amazing community. Have I said that enough times? All right, so these are the parts that I had from the last time I used this cooler. Apparently this is getting to be the cooler that I use temporarily because they're so easy to install. It's not a big deal to put it on there and then, you know, use it for prepping a board where we're going to change the cooler out to a liquid cooler or something, which would be very difficult to do, you know, to be able to do that without a case, you know, to hold the radiator in place. So we do need something here. Now, my faith in ASRock has been slightly restored. Obviously, you've seen a couple of builds lately using, let's see, we started with, there was an ASRock Z390 Pro A that I used, but I wasn't real happy with. And I was looking for some cheap 13th gen boards that supported Gen 5 NVMe, and they're few and far between, but ASRock, for the price, makes the cheapest, most affordable ones. So I bought one for that purpose. Turns out to be a fantastic rig. Exceeded my expectations. So then I bought two of these ASRock Live Mixer motherboards, which are crazily designed, and they make them for Intel and for AMD. The Intel ones are purple, the AMD ones are red. They're pretty neat, and they run really, really well. So I thought, well, maybe I'll stick with ASRock for this build because this is not going to a customer. This rig will be available for sale, and if you're interested in purchasing it, if you're in the United States, send me an email. And if you want, you can tally up how much all these parts cost: case, power supply, cooler, CPU, SSD, RAM, operating system, and you should get an idea of what it would cost just for the parts. That's not including any of my labor or shipping. You know, no reasonable offer will be refused. John Williams says, happy 4th. We just got a thunderstorm. Yahoo. I wish we had a thunderstorm. Holy smokes, it's been so hot lately. Holy cow. But this is summer. What do we expect? One of the things I covered during yesterday's members only video was a little device that, well, you may not know such a thing exists. So before we get started with this, I want to show you this little piece right over here. Wait, I got to change my camera view. So these are like $11 over at Amazon. And what this is it enables you to add a Gen 3 or Gen 4 M.2 drive to your motherboard, as long as you have a by 16 slot or even a by 8 slot available, or by 4 slot. I don't think there is a by 8. But regardless of that, it runs your solid state drive at full speed. So in other words, if your motherboard's PCIe is Gen 4 and you put a high performance Gen 4 drive in this, it will run exactly at the numbers that the manufacturer says it's capable of. Or it'll get really, really close to it, right, within reason. And then if you're Gen 3 motherboard, you can put a Samsung 970 EVO like what we're using today. And you pop this into a by 16 slot, it locks in just like a graphics card. So if you've got the slots available, you can add more M.2s all for $11. It's crazy. It looks like this. And I will do a review on it. And we tested it. It works great. And it's cheap. Gets the job done. There's a Samsung 980 in here. It absolutely performs just like they said it would. Just pops right into the socket. It's super easy. It's got RGB across the top here. And if that annoys you, there's a little switch right down there, way at the bottom. There's a little switch. It says LED power, and the switch is that little brown thing right there. And you slide the switch, and that can shut off the RGB if you don't want to see that. It's all that for $11. Bring your own SSD. And that's going to be for NVMe, not for SATA. That's only going to work with NVMe drives. It's nice to know that you can expand your storage beyond whatever number of sockets your board has. All right. Michael Mariello says, good to see you, Carey. Stepped away for a while. Happy 4th. Hey, Michael, thanks for joining us. Good to see you. Good to see your virtual self. That's the word. All right, so what are the specs here for this motherboard? This is the Z590 Extreme Wi-Fi. I should be able to pull that up here. We've got the parts list for all of today's build in the video notes. They're already there if you want to jump ahead. These are affiliate links. So if you click on anything, if you click on any of my links and make a purchase, I get a small commission from that, just so you know. And it's a nice anonymous way to support the channel because I don't know who you are. I can only see what was purchased and when. And the links are valid in the Amazon.com site only, not for other countries. I have not enabled that yet. It's on the to-do list. And let's see if we go over here. Turn on my screen share and we can look at this Amazon page together. There we go, for the motherboard. So this is what we're using, the ASRock Z690 Extreme. It's got built-in Wi-Fi 6E. It's a socket LGA 1700, of course. It takes DDR4 memory, and it's a full ATX motherboard. There's our I/O panel, and you see we got a little bit of everything here. We got a couple USB 3s, HDMI and DisplayPort, a 3.2, along with a Type-C 3.2. And we've got 2 LAN connections there. One is blue, one is black. I don't know what that means. We'll find out. 2 more USBs as we continue on to the right, and then all those little round circles on the far right, that's all your audio. So for surround sound, microphone input, line input, speaker output, SPDIF, etc., etc., etc. So I/O-wise, sitting pretty good there. And then, of course, the 2 brass fittings for the antennas for the Wi-Fi 6E. And what is this? I don't know what this piece is. That looks like a carrying handle. I don't know what that is. Let's see. Well, I guess we'll figure all this out. I've never used this motherboard ever before, so it's got something called polychrome sync, which I guess is for your RGB synchronization. Every manufacturer's got to do it their own way, which is frustrating when you're mixing different manufacturers and you want all the RGB to sync up. Of course, that's not important to me, just for your information. Okay, so in the box, we have have a tray here. This has our motherboard. It's pretty darn big. And then underneath that, we've got our accessories here. Let's see if I can move that out of the way. So our accessories include the owner's manual. Oh, and it's a thick manual at that. We've got some Velcro cable ties. We've got M.2 screws, which I want to take out and place on the board. Oh, and there's a standoff with the M.2. These are SATA cables. We're not going to use SATA. This is that weird bracket thing. That's for something. I don't know what it's for. Maybe it's a GPU support bracket. I don't know. Oh, they give us 2 sets of SATA cables. So you normally only get 2. Now we have 4. And then our 2 antennas, which we need for a while. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just fold this box closed. We'll put the motherboard on top of it. There we go. Now, for whatever reason, ASRock puts these cable ties through the mounting holes that wrap around the foam they ship the motherboard with, and you've got to get some. I wouldn't use scissors. I use wire cutters. I use angled wire cutters and cut away those cable ties. As soon as I find my angled cutters that are in here. Let's get rid of that one. That one, there's 2. Three, 4. I think that's all of them. Let's see, can we remove the motherboard from the foam? We can. All right. This will go to the foam man. Let me just clear this out of the way and we can continue. Hey, camera girl, yeah. I sure could use some close-ups. We've got some plastic on over the I/O shield. And you know what? It's weird. It looks like they used plastic to cover up this plastic. So it looks like there's a whole nother layer of plastic. So they used the plastic to protect the plastic that was protecting the top of the I/O shield from getting scratched in shipping. Ooh, more plastic on the heatsink. You don't want to leave that on because it insulates it and prevents it from cooling effectively. Also, it's shiny and clean underneath that plastic. You ready?
You don't want to get the peel on camera?
Too late. Too late. Come on over. All right. So look at that. That I've never seen before. They're putting a laptop Wi-Fi card rather than soldering the chip on the board. That means that Wi-Fi is upgradable. One of my biggest complaints about getting Wi-Fi in a motherboard and why I don't like doing it is that you can't upgrade it, and Wi-Fi changes rather rapidly. But what they've done here is given us kind of a Wi-Fi adapter you'd find in a laptop, which is socketable. Right now, there is not a better Wi-Fi adapter on the market. Wi-Fi 6E is as good as it gets, even though there are Wi-Fi 7 routers. We don't have any Wi-Fi 7 network cards yet. It's chicken or the egg, right? Somebody's got to go first. And it's a pretty nice motherboard. I'm really impressed with.
Nice.
Look at here, we've got this button start and reset, so I don't have to hook up my little switches. Right. So if you're somebody that tinkers a lot or wants to overclock and you're going to be rebooting a bunch of times, having the buttons here is really nice for a technician. Obviously, a consumer wouldn't be using these. Now, this is what they say extremes. It's about a $200 motherboard. It's about a $350 CPU. And let's see, I guess I can open the CPU up and we can start there.
Show me the box.
Did you get it? Was it?
Mhm.
Hold on, that's
Got
not
it.
focusing. There it is.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Got the tape. Gosh, it says the Samsung 990 Pro at $69.99 on Amazon is an amazing deal, right? There's some really good prices on RAM and SSDs right now, but I will tell you, the RAM prices are kind of leveling off. So I wouldn't think that they're going to continue to keep going down other than whatever happens on Amazon Prime Day. And then, like I said, even if it's a great price, then you got to worry about they sell out really quick and it won't be in stock. So if it's a savings of $4 you're worried about, just buy it today is what I'm suggesting. Don't roll the dice on that. It's a good drive. It's a good deal. And of course, I have my Amazon deals page where there's a link to that in the video notes below this video. And I've just compiled a bunch of things, computer related stuff that's on sale right now at a very aggressive price point from Amazon. Okay, so here's our chip. Boy, this looks small to me now. I'm so used to working with the socket 1700s that are rectangular. You know, to work back with the square one is feeling old school, feeling nostalgia. All right, let's go on to the motherboard here. Let's open CPU socket door here. Place this in this direction. Socket carefully. Okay. Then, make sure it's fully seated before you close the lid. This will go underneath the screw, and when we push this down, this plastic lid should pop up. We always save the plastic lid if we ever have to send the motherboard back to the manufacturer for repair, warranty work. You want to remove everything you've added to it, your CPU, your RAM, your storage, because you will not get it back if you send it to the manufacturer that way. And they warn you of that. And you can't leave this little socket exposed. There's 1,200 little pins under there that are very easily damaged. So if there is no CPU in the socket, you put that back on, and it does tell you what I've just told you right on top of the socket and in your owner's manual. Right on top of the socket cover, say. Okay. And what do we have? I got a standoff here.
Sorry.
You okay? You dying over there? So these are the M.2 screws and standoffs. I don't know exactly where they go, but I can kind of get a sense. If we pull up this heatsink right here, that is a very long screw. And what I'm paying attention to is when I put this back on, you'll notice one hole has sort of a, it's kind of in a bit from the end. And the other hole is just right at the edge. So the hole right at the edge is the one that's going to be closest to the I/O shield. And it appears that if we were to put an M.2 drive in there, it's going to hold that down. I guess the heatsink is going to hold that down unless your drive is too short. This should be at the 2280. Oh, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. I suppose it's got to go right there. That's what this standoff is for. Okay, so we'll take the standoff out of the bag here. Motherboard is LGA 1700, CPU is LGA 200. What's he talking about? Have I clicked on the wrong board on Amazon? Let me see. That's the Z690. That's the wrong motherboard. I'm on the Z590. So my apologies. Good catch there. On the Amazon page, it's linking to the ASRock Z690 Extreme, and we have the ASRock Z590. Okay. Let me delete. Where's my delete button? ASRock Z590 Extreme. There it is. So it's out of stock at Amazon because they don't make it anymore. But let me switch over to that real quick just to make that correction. As you can see here at the Amazon page, this is the ASRock Z590 motherboard, and I will have to replace that link. This is what it looks like. There's our Wi-Fi card. That makes much more sense. Good eye. All right, let's get back over to the close-up camera and keep going forward here. We're going to put this. So they put like tape or something over this. See? Now I can put this down here. So, and then it looks wider than the normal 5mm size. Let me just check that. Let's see. Nope, it's still 5mm. I'll just tighten it down a bit because I don't want it to unscrew if I have to take the NVMe drive out in the future. Here's our NVMe drive, our 970 Evo Plus from Samsung. These are $99 right now at Amazon, and if you order them today, you could have it potentially delivered tomorrow morning. It just kind of depends on if you're an Amazon Prime customer and if the Amazon warehouse near you has these in stock. But it's entirely possible for many of you that if you order it today, you can have it before 8 a.m. tomorrow at no additional cost. Okay, so we've done this a dozen times before. There's our 2 terabyte NVMe storage. I'm going to plug that in right over here, like so. Would you look at that? So apparently, you know what they say about measure twice and cut once? Apparently I was right the first time when I assumed when you put the heatsink down, the heatsink screws into that, and that's going to hold our drive in place. And so therefore, that little standoff is not needed there. So I'm going to remove that. There might be a better place for that. I have to look underneath this heatsink. Or maybe it's just there for shorter length NVMe drive. You know, we've already got a standoff here in the board, so it's really inconsistent why they didn't already pre-install this one unless it's just an optional piece that most people won't use. Yeah, sometimes some motherboards use the heatsink to double as the securing point to hold your NVMe drive in place. And so they're all going to have little thermal pads with tape. You must remove the tape if you don't want your, if you want your drive to be cooled properly, you can't forget to remove that tape. And then, as I mentioned, there's 2 holes. One hole is away from the end, and one hole is very close to the end of the drive of the this metal plate. See how close that hole is to the edge? And that hole there is a little distance away from the edge. So that's how I know that the one that's a distance away is going to go right there. We should be able to seat that right over. And then using the screws I just removed, right back in, and that will simultaneously act as a heat shield or a heat spreader and secure your drive in place at the same time. I'm all for that design. One less screw to worry about. So I'm just getting them started here so I can get that lined up correctly. Don't over tighten the screws. You're going to take them down until they are snug. They're going to just come to a stop here. That's it. No further. Now, looking at this other heat shield, I keep calling it a heat shield. A heat shield protects something from heat. A heat spreader is technically what this is, that spreads the heat out. I just want to see what's under here. Is there one or two? Once again, keeping in mind how this is going to go back on. This one's a lot easier because it's got writing, and I know the writing is going to face that direction. And it's also got this slot. I know the slot's going to be towards the bottom of the motherboard. We lift that up. Well, this is very interesting. We do have a need for a standoff in either of these positions. And my guess is this position right here. That's where I think it would go. And again, we got that little piece of tape. I don't know why I cover these up with tape. Piece of tape off. It's down. Rotate it in the right orientation. That would carry.
Name again?
What's that?
What's your name again?
What's my name again?
Yeah.
Sir.
I'm just kidding.
I am not left-handed, so doing this with my left hand is my own little personal challenge to try and be ambidextrous. So I think that seems about right for a 2280. At least it's there. Even if I put it, if I have to move it, you know, for the different length of drive, if I eventually, or a customer eventually wants to put a drive in there, they won't have to go looking for some little tiny Ziploc bag with a super teeny tiny part in it. So we'll just get that out of the way now. Keeps that there, and then we'll grab the M.2 screws that are in these bags, and I'll go ahead and put the M.2 screw in here and in here. Wait a minute. This looks like it's supposed to have potentially heat shield over it. See, we've got an M.2 slot here, but we have a heat shield, a heat spreader here and here, but this one is exposed, but there's a big standoff like it's there for a heat spreader. Yeah, maybe the manual says something about it. I don't know. Pretty interesting. So I'm just going to take the little teeny tiny M.2 screw here, and I'm going to place one of them here, because that would be where another M.2 could go. And again, if you do have to send your motherboard in for a warranty, you want to remove these screws because you may not get them back. Consider these accessories, and they don't want you to send accessories when you send back your board. All right, and then the other bag with the last remaining little M.2 screw is we'll put that in once again, so we don't lose it. We know where it'll be. The reason I say that is it could be 2, 3, 4 years before somebody wants to add something to this. And by then, Lord only knows where all the documentation and box went in that amount of time. So by keeping it on the board, we don't have to worry about locating it. All right, and then with that done, we're going to leave the tape on here because there's no reason to remove the tape if we're not cooling anything. And that'll keep it nice and clean. And then we can just tighten that back down. Craig Casabona contributes $20 in Super Chat. He says, happy 4th. Right on. Well, thank you, Craig. Happy 4th to you, too. And thank you for contributing to the channel. Go. Okay. And let me just clear some of this junk out of the way so we can continue forward. Actually, I think I'll hold on to these little tiny Ziplocs because they're great for holding spare screws. So I'll put them over here in this drawer. Along. And then our documentation in our Samsung box is actually within the plastic container. You have to open it. And that'll go right there. Just close this back up. And we're done with that. It's emptied. Oh, I got another little plastic bag I can save. Those come in handy, I'll tell you what. Okay, so we've got the CPU and storage installed. The last things we have to do is a heatsink and RAM. So we'll open everything. RAM. And as I mentioned, I've got this Scythe Mugen 5 we've been using on project builds. And I think we're already set up for socket 1200, but I could be mistaken. Let me take the back plate out and see if we have to make some adjustments. Oh yeah, this looks like it's set up for socket 1700. Yeah, so what I have to do basically is pull these little plastic end caps, move the screw towards the center, and then put the end cap back on that holds the screw. And that's really the difference between the socket 1200 and socket 1700 is just that couple extra millimeters of distance in the mounting holes. So just pop this off, lower the screw, move it over, rotate it till it locks in, and keep your finger on it or it'll just fall right out. That's what the plastic end cap does, is it keeps it in place for you. Much easier install than what we saw in that liquid cooler the other day. And now you've got this piece that can go on either like this. You see how there's a cutout to go around that screw that's on the CPU socket? This right here is the CPU socket, and it's being held in, attached to the motherboard with 3 screws. And if you notice, this back plate has holes cut out here with a dip, and it's the same on both sides. And the reason they do that is so if you put it in this way, or if you turn it 180 degrees and put it in this way, it makes no difference. The holes are cut out to get around those screws and get around that screw. Otherwise, it's going to bend as you tighten it down. The legs are going to bend, and you're not going to get even pressure from your heatsink to the top of your CPU. It'll get different pressures across the surface. So this ensures that everything stays flat and even. So with that in place, I can flip this back over. And I need to put our brackets on. Now, unfortunately, looks like I have made a boo-boo because these are socket 1700 brackets, which are not going to work for us today. They're too long. Now, the kit comes with socket 1700 brackets, AMD, AM4 brackets, and the sockets 115X/1200 brackets. So why didn't I keep that, Carey? I don't know. However, that's an easy enough problem to fix. I'll just steal a set from another kit here. Tell you what I'll do. Even though these aren't going to match color-wise. No, you know what? I did the same thing over here. That's socket 1700 only. I guess I thought I was done building socket 1200s. I didn't think I was going to do any more. So I didn't think to hold on to those pieces. But that's okay. I actually may still have the pieces in here. I got a lot of Mugen 5 leftover parts, so I just quit saving them. So this is from a silver Mugen 5, and we can just, yeah, here we go. Let's just steal these brackets. I don't think I'm going to keep this cooler on here anyway. It's just enough to get the job done. You can see these brackets are very different looking. And they're going to go right over where this lever is. It's going to go right over that lever. And before we put those on, just wanted to make sure that those are going to fit and we're going to be okay. They don't color match, but like I said, not going to keep it that way. Those will go back in this box where I'm just borrowing them for now. Drop something. Ugh, getting old. So we'll put all that back in there. Drop some more. All good. Problem solved. Onward and upward. So now we're going to take these brackets. Sorry. We're going to take these standoffs that look like that. Spacers are really what they are. Got a rubber bottom and a hard top. That rubber bottom is there to go against your motherboard so it doesn't scratch it up or dig into it. And there's a little resistance when you push those down, and that's going to hold that CPU backplate. It's going to hold it in. So if I pick up the board right now, it won't fall out. So again, another very thoughtful touch that Scythe does on their cooler installation, at least on the Mugen 5. Now I can put the brackets on, which again, aside from the color, these are the correct brackets. I want to use that inward pull. That, like that. And we're going to just do the same thing, going over the CPU socket lever. And then we have 4 thumb screws. 2, 3, and 4, like that. Those are going to hold the bracket down onto the backplate. Is it like super hot in here, or is it just?
It's pretty warm.
Yeah. Wow. It's been a while since I've been this comfortable. So we'll just tighten these down. No specific order is necessary. Don't recommend that you over tighten them. Want them tight. So if you over tighten them, you could crack your motherboard. So, or you could break the spacer. So just to where it's tight. I wouldn't go any further than, making it super tight. And then we can use our thermal compound, which means it's time for the glove. How you holding out there, camera girl?
Good.
Not getting tired yet?
No, I just have work to do.
Yeah, work to do. What am I doing?
Entertaining.
I'm entertaining. All right, well, if you consider my work entertaining, you should be able to make entertainers make a lot more money than I make. You look at an entertainer's salary and look at a teacher's
You're
salary.
paid in love.
Yeah, I'm going to call the electric company and see if they'll let me pay in love. I'm afraid they're going to say, yes, come on over. Mr. Ailes, see you now. There we go. That's how I put thermal compound on. That's what works for me as a professional in the industry over 30 years. So that's the way I do it. Now, as for the top of this cooler, it looks like it needs to be cleaned. Maybe we'll give that a good scrub down here real quick with Q-tips and rubbing alcohol, even though I don't intend for this cooler to stay on here. Who knows? Maybe somebody says, hey, I'll buy it from you with that cooler. Leave it like it is. And that night, I'd have to take it back apart to say, okay, well, if you're going to use this permanently, better do it right. So I'm going to do it right now, so I don't have to worry about having to take it back apart and do it right later. Okay, that's my logic. Just get it out of the way. There wasn't much on there. It's just a little bit of dust, I suppose, is what that was.
Detritus.
Detritus, and that's fine. And the alcohol evaporates. So we're going to turn the Mugen 5 so that the part that sticks out, the screw that you can see here, it's going to be towards our RAM. And the screw that you can't see, that goes towards the I/O shield. And these two screws are going to screw into these center holes here on the brackets that we put in. And you notice I only put thermal compound on the CPU. I would have no idea what part of the bottom of this heatsink to put thermal compound where it would align with the CPU and not just drip around it. So that's why we put it on the CPU, and it naturally transfers where it needs to go at the bottom of the heatsink, and it takes all the guesswork out of it. Now this, we want to tighten down those two screws evenly. We don't want to tighten one all the way down. We want to get each one started. And Scythe includes a free screwdriver with the Mugen 5. And it looks, well, it used to look like this, but now the color's changed. It's magnetized, and the reason they include it is you need to get all the way down through this hole to get to the screw way down here, and we just want to give that a couple of turns and start it. That's it, and then we're going to come over to the other side. So the more we tighten that side, this starts to tilt, and that's why these screws have springs on them to apply pressure. We're going to get this one started a little bit more. Then we're going to come back over, just kind of guesstimate about the same level, and then go a little further than that. Then come back over here, and now we can tighten this all the way down. And now we can tighten this one all the way down. And that should give us equal tension and pressure across the surface of the CPU. Now these screws will absolutely come to a dead stop. It'll be pretty obvious where to stop turning, because you will hurt your hand before they will budge beyond the dead stop, which is nice. It's confirmation you have tightened them enough. I've already got the fan hangers on the fan. The fan is going to go in this orientation here, and it fits into the grooves that are cut out in top of the Mugen 5, which is really nice. So it guides you to where the fan goes. And we want the fan blowing the air through the heatsink, so we make sure where these brackets are, that's the side of every fan you'll ever see, at least on a computer, that the air is being blown through. So this side here, where the center is spinning, that's the part that draws the air in. So you can quickly check which direction your fans are installed based on whether or not you see the support brackets or if you're seeing the center spin. We want all of our airflow to move in the same direction. So at the front of the case, which would be, over here, the fans will be in the exact same orientation. They're going to blow air in. This fan is blowing air through. And then on the back of the case, it'll be blowing air out. So the air is only moving this direction. The case, through the CPU, heatsink, and through the back of the case. This is our CPU fan header. That's going to go, it says CPU fan 2 or CPU fan 1. It's an RGB LED, another LED. It says it's for use in a water pump. See the WP right there? Let's see, a CPU fan 1. Not that it really matters, but some motherboards, if you don't have CPU fan 1, if you don't have something plugged into it, it'll give you a BIOS error and say, no CPU fan detected, and it won't start in order to protect your system from overheating. What does this one down here say? Anything?
CPU fan 1.
Really? That's all the way over there?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's different. Can't say I'm a big fan of that. You know what? I think I'm going to go ahead and use CPU fan 2. And we'll see if the BIOS lets us get away with it, because I don't like the way the cable's going to look if I have to run it over there. Now I can put our RAM in, and for RAM, does it tell us which sockets to use? Out of 4, which are the first 2? Once again, if you look down on the board, somewhere it might identify. It's really dark in here today. Let me get my flashlight. Nothing on the board to help us there. So let's look in the manual, I guess. Interesting. Well, let me pull this up and go out. This is old school manual. Oh, we got another standoff here. It's in the manual. That goes somewhere on the board. And wait a minute. We have yet another M.2 screw. We have a Go Faster sticker and a driver disc. You know this is old if you're getting a driver disc. Don't do that anymore. I got a postcard. Wish you were here.
Yeah.
Weird thing to include. And let's see what it says about putting our RAM in. Okay, dual channel wants me to populate A2 and B2. Okay, but they don't tell us which one's A1 and B1. Somewhere there should be a diagram. Yeah, that little metal bracket is a graphics support bracket that I was looking at earlier. Yeah, I don't see where it's telling us. There should be a legend in here somewhere that tells us what those. Oh, here it is. If you scroll, if you point the camera here. Here, this tells us that DDR A1 is the one closest to the CPU. Then A2 is after that. Then B1 is after that, and B2. So we're going to use, it said A2 and B2, right? We go over here now. It says if you're only going to use 2, use A2 and B2. So that means we do not use the one closest to the CPU. Means we use the next one in, which will look like. I can't see anything. Move this. Okay. I think we're okay here. So that's A2. And then here's B2. So we just skip a channel. Puts us in dual channel mode. That locks us in place. And guess what? Our build is complete and we're ready for our first power on self-test and install Windows, I don't know, 10 or 11. What do you think?
Back to 10.
You think I should go to 10 on this bad boy? Alrighty. Here, I don't know which power supply I'm going to use for this yet, but for testing purposes, I'll bring out old reliable Silverstone ET750 that I've been using lately. Because it gives us a lot of cable, so we have a lot of reach. So this connector here is going to go on this big connector. It only fits on one way. It's got a clip on one side and it locks in. Then we've got 2 8-pin CPU headers, EPS power cables. And this power supply just happens to have 2 of these. A lot of power supplies do not. So I don't think it's required you use them both unless you're overclocking, which means you're going to be requiring more power than can be delivered off a single connector. So even though these are coming off the same cable, that's okay. Since I have two, I'm going to use two, even if I don't necessarily need the second one. Let's see. There's one. There's two. And we don't even need to hook up my power switch or anything because this board, as I previously showed you guys, has a power button right on it. So now I can just start plugging things in. So we can give the power supply power, plug the video out of the motherboard into the capture card. Excuse me. So we'll plug this in right here. Make sure the power supply is in the off position and plug that in. I need a Windows 10 installation media, which I have. This it? No. This it? Yeah, there's Windows 10. Plug that in right there. And then just a keyboard and a mouse, and we can do our very first power on self-test. Keyboard and mouse right here. Done with these Q-tips, they can put away. And let's see, we're gonna go put the keyboard and mouse over here. Now I'll turn the power switch on. Oh, look, we got RGB happening already, even though the system is not turned on. That's why you always want to unplug the system before you work on it, because even though the system is off, it still has power flowing through it. You want to get a better look at that. Go to the I/O shield. Was there something glowing on the back of it? Guess not. Interesting. All right. Well, that's cute. All right. So I am going to go over to the HDMI input source on my capture card. You can take a break. And I want to turn camera 1 back on. Sweating like crazy over here. And I'll move camera 1 into a corner. Oh, just like that. And you want to hit the power button or should I do it? This button right here.
Oh.
Yep. Okay, CPU fan is spinning. We're off to a good start. Thank you. Back to work. Now your first boot could take 90 seconds, even up to 3 minutes as it's training the RAM and figuring out what CPU you put in it. And we probably also want to check for a BIOS update, but at this point now, it should just start to boot from the flash drive because I don't have anything else bootable. The NVMe drive is brand new out of the box. They don't know if you're using that with Linux or Apple or whatever. So it has no format, no partition, and Windows is going to do all that for us automatically during the installation process. So this is the same thing you've probably seen me do many, many times before if you're a regular here. And if you're not, you should know that I always do this the same way. Whether it's Windows 10 or Windows 11, the process doesn't change. Say install now. I'm going to say I do not have a product key. There's a reason for this. I am going to buy a product key for Windows 10 Pro, so I better select the right version that matches the product key I'm going to put in later, or it will not activate. So I always choose Windows 10 Pro, hit next. Got to accept the license agreement, hit next. Always choose a custom install, always choose a custom install. And we do not see our NVMe drive, which is Well, that's not promising, is it? Obviously, we can't install Windows if it doesn't detect the drive. So somewhere I have made a mistake, apparently. So what I want to do first and foremost is restart this computer and just look in its BIOS real quick and see if there's something I've missed with regards to that top NVMe slot. Now, this is only going to be a Gen 3 motherboard. So there's no sense spending money on a Gen 4 drive. It's going to cost more. It's only going to run at Gen 3 speeds. Let me turn this back on again. I'll hit delete or F2. That should get us in the BIOS. There we go. So it's recognizing our RAM, and we could probably even put on the XMP profile on this RAM. Profile 1. Know that it's letting me select that. Interesting. If I go to, well, first of all, we can see what version of BIOS we have. This is P1.60. And we have something called Internet Flash. And I guess I would start there. So the way Internet Flash works, or the way it's supposed to work, is you plug the internet in. As you notice, I did not plug the internet in earlier because I don't want Windows telling me I have to have a Microsoft account during the Windows install. So after Windows is installed with a local account, then I plug it into the network. So let me find my Ethernet cable. There we go. And I'll plug that in. I don't know if it matters which port. If it's, it may actually make a difference which LAN port we use here for the BIOS update. Let's try Internet Flash. And let's see if it functions. Update items. Firmware version 2.2, update. Internet connection error. Well, that's interesting. Let's try it one more time. Internet Flash. Update. Internet connection error. So I'm going to switch the the LAN port here. I'm going to go over to the blue one. We'll give that a second to initialize, because that could make a difference. And once again, I'll hit Internet Flash. That's getting an IP address from my router. And update. So when this works, it's a really neat function of the BIOS. And we're assuming 2.6, did I say 2 point whatever, is in fact the latest. I've had circumstances where when I manually looked, there was a newer version than the automated response I got. And downloading at 0%, staying there an awfully long time, which is a little bit concerning. But it's not a big deal. We can still do it the regular way I always do it. This is just me being lazy. I mean, if it works, why not use it? Besides, I don't get to show this very often. Let me look through the chat. I see 375 of you joining. Welcome in, everybody. Internet connection error again. So this is the problem I have had with this Internet Flash consistently with ASRock, where sometimes it works fine and sometimes it doesn't work at all. It's very strange. So yeah, 2.2. I'm gonna try it now, same problem. So that's okay. I didn't even come in here to do that anyway. The reason I went in here, of course, was to check and see where our solid state drive is. And so to look at that, we're gonna have to go to a more advanced mode here. So up here, you see F6 is advanced mode. And we want to go to, advanced, I think. And under storage configuration, I want to see if it, yeah, it says M2-1, M2-2, and M2-3, nothing is detected. That's not good. So at this point, I wonder if that Samsung 970 EVO isn't seated properly, since I wasn't able to screw it into place, right? Because the heatsink holds it down. I'm wondering if that might be what the problem is. And of course, I can always try, just for the sake of doing it, resetting the BIOS. Load UEFI defaults, yes. Save changes and exit. And then I'm going to hit F2 one more time just to see if we have any difference in our detection of the NVMe drive. So F6 over to advanced. The storage. No, it does not see it. So I think it's just not seating in the socket correctly. So what I'm going to do is we'll go back full screen here on camera 1. We're going to have to open that back up, take that heat spreader back off, and visually inspect. Hopefully it's something silly. Just being silly. Okay. I'm going to have to step around here. Since it's all cabled up, it's difficult to turn it where I need it. We're going to take this back off. There's one. There's the other one. It's in there good. It's in there really good. It's not promising. Why would it not detect it? I have never seen a DOA drive before. I wonder if this is dead on arrival. That'll be a new one for me. All the parts that we're dealing with, the motherboard and the CPU and the NVMe, are all brand new parts. The CPU cooler rather, is not new. Power supply is not new. It's been verified to work. Also, the RAM is not new, but it's also been verified to work. So let's give this one more shot. I don't expect anything to be any different because there was nothing for me to fix. Let's turn it back on. And once again, I'm going to go back over to HDMI input, F2. Paul O'Brien contributes €2. He says this is for the entertainment value. All right. Thank you. Let's take a look again. F6, back over to storage, advanced. There's storage. Yeah, M2 is not detected. Any of the 3 slots. Very, very interesting. So one way we can determine if it's the motherboard or if it's the NVMe drive is to use a different NVMe drive or use a different motherboard. And quite frankly, switching the NVMe drive out is much, much easier. This is where being a tech is helpful because I have lots of spare parts. Most people at home wouldn't have the advantage to do this. And you really do need spare parts these days for some diagnoses. And this would be an example of that. What should I put in there? Tell you what, I've got an ADATA XPG. Let's just use that because I know this works. It's a pretty good drive. This is a used drive that came out of a system a while back. I also think it's possible that maybe there's something in the BIOS to switch that on or off. Not quite sure. And I could also simply move, like if I was a home user and I didn't have any spare parts, I would move the location of the NVMe to a different M.2 slot just to see if it's the slot or the drive. But for a brand new drive to not work, I've never witnessed that ever. That is a new one. Power supply is off. Go ahead and pull Samsung 970 out of there. Put this XPG drive in, and I bet you it's not going to see it. I suspect something else is going on here. Something more sinister is afoot. Once again, don't over tighten. Just want this to be snug. It looks like it's actually warping because this A data drive already has a little heat shield on it. So it just needs pressure. It doesn't need to be super tight, and you don't want to bend it. So we're going to leave it just like that. See if we have better luck this go around. Here we go. Turn that back on. Go back over to my input here. Do F2. That'll bring us into the BIOS. Then we're going to go to F6 for advanced mode, over to the top where it says advanced, and scroll to storage config. And we're not seeing any M.2 drive at all. So I'm wondering if something has to be enabled or disabled. I am a bit relieved though, because I didn't think anything was wrong. SATA controllers enabled or disabled. Interesting. Paul M says the top slot does not work with a Generation 10 CPU. Well, that's interesting. So if the top slot is only for Generation 11, you know what? I'm remembering this now. I remember when these came out. Thank you for mentioning that to me, because that had never happened in any prior generation of Intel chip. And it was only something on Gen 10 where the top slot didn't work unless you had an 11th gen processor. Thank you for that reminder. It's been a while. So I guess what we'll do is we'll take this back on here, yeah? We'll take this back out. Thankfully, it's a real easy job. Pop that right back out. And this is what happens when you don't read the manual. But again, it was just this particular family of product that was unique and different from every other product family for Intel chips. This was unique. Kind of in a changeover phase, if you will, where they were trying to be prepared for the future, but at the same time be backwards compatible with current technology. So that's probably a Gen 4 slot. It requires a Gen 4 CPU, or a CPU that supports Gen 4 PCIe. But you think it would be backwards compatible, but it has to do with the number of lanes the CPU has available. And apparently the 11th gen has more lanes than a 10th gen. So there you go. Clear as mud. I do want to keep it under the heatsink. So we'll go to the bottom, and hopefully this is a high-speed port down here. I don't want to use the exposed sink when I've got a heat sink here that can help keep the drive cool. So why not use that? Let's see. I don't want to use that drive. I want to use the Samsung. We'll pop it down here. Yep. I moved the standoff. When I put the standoff down there, I was like, I think that's the right position. It is the right position. And that screw I said I was going to need later, well, glad I knew where it was. It was right where I left it. So we'll put that in down here. tighten this down right here. Remove the tape off of the thermal tape here. And the words facing down. Seat that where it goes. Tighten it down with the screwdriver. That side started. Get the other side started. Now I can go ahead and tighten it down. I come over here and tighten this side down. Bada boom, bada bing, flip the switch, hit the power. Wait a minute. Before I do that, let me grab my Windows 10 install again. And we'll have it just boot right to Windows, the Windows 10 installation media. Over here. That. And okay, we'll hit the power. Fan is spinning. I will put myself in the corner again. There we go. And back through this again. Make it full screen so I can see it better. And push. Install now. Don't have a product key. Oh, I want to unplug the internet from here because I don't want it forcing me to create an online account. Glad I remembered that. Windows 10 Pro, that's what we're going to put in there. Agree to the license agreement. Hopefully, after we choose custom, we'll see a drive. There it is. Hallelujah. We'll hit next, and we're off to the races. This should install in no time. While I'm waiting, I'm going to grab a cold Gatorade. I'm going to put this XPG drive back on the shelf. It's a little bit thick because it's got that little heat spreader on top of it, which would be ideal to put it in that position where we don't have a heat spreader. That center M.2 slot on the motherboard has no heat spreader. So putting an M.2 that has its own heatsink would be ideal in that position on the board. And this Mugen 5 fan is whisper quiet. Can't hear a thing. Paul mentions you can see the M.2 storage on the front page of the BIOS on the left side. Good to know. At least he can move the M.2 heat shield to the center slot. Oh, is that what they did? They made it so you can move it? I hadn't thought of that before. It's an interesting concept. It says you can use the bottom spreader on the middle slot. I don't think you can. Can you? I think it's too long. Let's take another look at that. Once again, I'm sure this is all detailed in the documentation. So if that's the middle, how would you secure it? Because that would go all the way almost to the edge of the board. I have to say it's the other way around. The bottom heat spreader is way too long to go anywhere else but there. But that top heat spreader looks like it could be moved to the middle position. Those look like the same length. And that explains why there's a standoff there. That's why I was confused. And they must have said, okay, if they want to use the top slot and they can't because they're using a 10th gen CPU, then they can use the slot just below that. And since they're not using the top slot, I guess their thought is you're going to use either the top slot or the middle slot. And what did I do? The exact opposite, went right to the bottom. But if they're all running Gen 4 by 4, then it shouldn't matter. But some of the other slots may not run at full speed. So we'll find out here. All right, so we're going to hit yes here. US, skip. I'm going to say I don't have internet. I'm going to tell it twice. Username will be user. Enter, enter. I turn off everything but the location settings. That way my date and time can always be kept up to date and I don't have to worry about losing minutes or daylight savings time changes. It can happen all automatically, hands off. And if I want to know where's the nearest, I don't know, Pizza Hut near me, just like I do on my phone, it can tell me without me having to specify where I am. So I really appreciate that spying on me because it makes my life easier. Jeremy the Red with $7 super chat contributed. Carey says, I just got my father the Boss Game mini PC that you reviewed and the stubborn old man loves it. Thank you, bud. I really appreciate you. Can you believe how small the mini PC is? I don't think many people really grasp just how small those mini PCs are until you have one in your hands. Someone was just leaving a comment about that the other day, and I got so used to it, I don't think about it much anymore, but they absolutely are incredibly small for as powerful as they are. Now, of course, whether we put on Windows 10 or Windows 11 Pro, I'm going to use a Windows 10 Pro key either way. Windows 10 Pro keys are cheaper than Windows 11 Pro. And a Windows 10 Pro key will work once to activate Windows 11 Pro. It uses the same key. It's a free upgrade. You do not have to install the operating system that you're upgrading. In other words, if Windows 11 is a free upgrade from Windows 10, then all you need is the 10 product key, not the 10 software for the upgrade to work. Just so you know, so you can save some money by buying the Windows 10 Pro key instead of the Windows 11 Pro key when they both do exactly the same thing. Okay, there's our install done. And I'm just curious if I run my Crystal Disk Mark, what sort of numbers we're going to get off this thing here. Plug that in real quick before we do anything else. And remember, I still have the Samsung drivers to put in and stuff, but I just want to know right now that slot is running at by 2. So if we're only going to get speeds of 1800, 1600, somewhere in there, then I know that that's a by 2 slot and I want to move it. If we see speeds over 3000, close to 3600, then I know it's a by 4 slot and we can leave it exactly where it is. And I want to find that out right now. So I use this free download called Crystal Disk Mark. I get the portable version so I don't have to install any software. I run the 64-bit edition of it. I leave all the default values and just hit to run all tests. And let's see what our numbers are. Chris McGraw looks like he's quoting the manual. The M.2 heatsink is default equipped with M2-1 socket to pair with an Intel 11th gen processor. You may use it for M2-2 if you're using the Intel 10th gen processor to get the best heat dissipation. Thank you for sharing that information, Chris. Make sure that Chris is blue in here. See, that's all you have to do to be blue. Be friendly. Let me see you often enough in the chat room participating that I recognize your name and go, time for this person to be blue. They are blue material. Yeah, we're at 34, 35, so that's a by 4 slot. We don't have to move it. It's all good. Carey had a finger oops. What does that even mean? Oh, earlier. We're still talking about that? That's like a year ago. That was forever ago. Yeah. Just scrolling through the chat here. Don't mind me. The Greenie says, can I be darker blue? Yeah, hold your breath for about 4 minutes. Paul O'Brien contributed €2 a little earlier, said, just because I care. Right on. Well, thank you again, Paul O'Brien. Got to refresh for some reason, my YouTube studio is like showing me my video from 20 minutes ago, even though it's been running this whole time. You think it would be right up to the latest second. Now it is. Douglas says the numbers look good so far. Oh yeah, we're in the clear. We're going to leave it exactly where it is. I don't know if the center M.2 slot runs at also Gen 4 by Gen 3 by 4, but it's irrelevant. We're going to leave everything just the way it is. It's a nice clean look, and I like the aesthetic of it. And Ben Laird, joining us from Scotland, contributes £2 in Super Chat. Thank you, Ben. Okay, let me go back over to my OBS settings here. Paul M contributes $3. He says, I wish it could be more. You are worth it, Carey. Well, remember that when you win the lottery in a few months or a few years. I appreciate, look, anybody giving anything is more than most people do. So it all adds up, and I greatly appreciate it. Regardless, it's more about the thought, right, that you're there supporting. And if more people just gave that little tiny bit, we could do some amazing videos. But I'm doing what I can with what I have, and much of that is thanks to the generosity of the viewers. So looks like these numbers are all solid and good to go. I want to get BIOS installed now. So to do that, what I'm going to do, first of all, I need to save these numbers over here. Close this out. I'm going to eject utilities drive. Actually, well, I've got the utilities drive plugged in. I might as well copy over what I'm going to need from it, which is VLC will bring over Samsung Magician software and NVMe driver. We'll bring that over. And Uncle Carey's Windows 10 optimizer. And if we want to test it with Prime 95, I just don't think this Mugen 5 is going to be enough to keep a 10900K at full bore. Cool enough, but I don't know until I try it. Could be wrong. So we'll bring that over as well, and then we don't need this flash drive anymore. Safely eject that. Actually, yeah, let's eject it. Eject extreme. How about extreme eject? Fresh USB ports are tight. Okay, now I can plug the internet in. And I can't see which port I'm plugging in. I don't know what the difference is between them because I haven't looked at the manual. Let's go to the device manager. We've probably got a lot of stuff missing drivers. Got to use the right mouse to do this though. Right click, device manager. Yeah. So we have an Ethernet controller and a network controller not being seen. As far as any network adapters that are being seen, there is a Realtek 2.5 gig. So since I'm not getting a connection, I'm going to try the other port there. And we'll watch this bottom right corner and see if that globe turns into a little computer screen. That'll tell us that it's getting an IP address. It's clearly done that because otherwise that wouldn't have popped up. And a lot of these drivers will come in through Windows Update automatically. But before we do that, what I want to do is get started with the Microsoft Edge, which is fine. Camera Girl, it's fine. Microsoft Edge is fine. She hates it. It's terrible. It's just Chrome. I don't know why you think it's a big deal. I don't think they can hear you. Hope they didn't hear that. Garfield Rupe contributes $2. He says, Happy 4th of July, Uncle Carey. Right on. Thank you. You too. This is what? An ASRock Z590 Extreme Wi-Fi 6E. That's the name of the board. And right here, it takes us to ASRock. So that's the right site. And just so I'm not covering up anything, I'm going to remove camera 1 during this process. And we want to go to support. Now, the support up here is going to take you to generic ASRock support, and the support down here takes you to support for the product page that you're on specifically. So I'll click that one. And if we look under BIOS, we had what, version 1.6, and since then there's been 1.7, 1.9, 2.1, 2.2. So we're just going to grab 2.2, select global. It's going to download the zip file, which I'm going to open and extract. And oh, it looks like they just give us the BIOS file and nothing else. That's good. That makes a lot less confusion when they do that. I can grab a small capacity like a 2 gig, a 4 gig, 8 gig, nothing more than 16 gigs though. 16 gigs is fine, but we don't want to go any higher than that. Flash drive. And I keep some old cheap flash drives just for this occasion. So some viewer sent these to me from Amazon. It's like a 10-pack of these really super, well, I've turned the camera off so you can't see, but they're super cheap flash drives. They're very flimsy feeling. They don't feel like they're made well, but they're only 2 gigs each, and they were very cheap. They're sort of disposable, so I don't care if they break. So now that I've done that, I can come over, come over here, right-click and copy this. Then if we go to this PC, we should see the flash drive. Oh, yeah, I haven't plugged it in all the way. Ah, that's the problem. Need to plug it in all the way, Carey. Double click, right click, paste. That's going to copy that BIOS file that we just downloaded and extracted onto the flash drive. And with that, I can shut this computer completely down. Power and restart. Now it's already been grabbing updates in the background, whether you like it or not, because they're important. So it may say that it's installing updates while we do this, and that's okay. But in this case, it hasn't, which I'm thrilled with. I'm going to hit F2 to get us back into the BIOS. And I'm going to go to Instant Flash down here and update. Do you want to update UEFI to 2.20? Yes. So it has apparently found it on the flash drive without me having to point it manually, which is what I normally have to do. With the flash drive already plugged in and the only file on the flash drive being the BIOS update, it says, oh, this must be what you want to do. I see a BIOS file here. After pressing enter, the system will automatically reboot. Please wait for a few seconds and the BIOS will continue. So I'll click OK, which is the same as pressing enter. course, you don't want to interrupt this process while it's happening. So keep your hands off the keyboard and the mouse. Stay away from it. Don't mess around with it. Let it do what it needs to do. Frankie B sent $50 using Zelle. Hey, Frankie, thank you so much. All right, this will probably take just a couple minutes as we go through this process. Mark Gaines said, I missed his super chat again. Wow, I'm really dropping the ball with you here, Mark, aren't I? My apologies. Mark Gaines contributed £5 and he says, happy 4th of July, Carey. Well, right on. Well, thank you, Mark. Mark joins us from Northern Ireland. Joe says it is boiling hot here in Traverse City, Michigan. Oh, you want to trade? At least you got the lake. And, you know, trees and shade. Not getting a lot of not getting a lot of shade out of it leaning against a cactus. Do any of you have any questions while we're waiting for the BIOS update? We can just stare at each other silently. Joe says, fat chance, Carey. Yeah, because even if it is hot, you're still in Traverse City, which is a beautiful city. Expensive, but beautiful. Little touristy, but beautiful. Do I always prefer to do the BIOS update this way? Well, if you always do it the same, you know what to expect. You know, there's other ways to do it. So why keep doing it differently? You know what I mean? Just find a way that I'm comfortable with. All right, so Lawn Dog says, Carey, it's 103 here in the Desert Empire, very windy. I'm sure people will like the 4th of July fireworks. What's it like in your area for 4th of July? I think it's 112, 111. Right now, and it's still getting hotter, right? It's only 2 o'clock in the afternoon here, so it's 107. That'll probably climb another 3 or 4 degrees before 5 o'clock. So at least by 9 o'clock, the sun is down, right? Because you can't see fireworks in the sun anyway. And that'll take us down into the 90s. So once again, I'm still hands off on this. It's rebooting itself. It may reboot itself multiple times. Don't freak out if you're new to BIOS updates. If your machine starts and stops and starts and stops and you think, oh no, something's wrong, don't interrupt it. When it's done, it'll either take you back into the BIOS or back into Windows. So in this case, it has taken us back into Windows. And what I can do now is if I right click for me to see this full screen, I can go use this mouse and I can erase the BIOS file on the USB drive, which will leave that blank and ready to use for something else. I will never need that file ever again. It's done. And we can verify that with CPU-Z or going back in the BIOS. This little search highlights here drives me crazy. On Windows 10, it's easy to get rid of it by right-clicking on the task bar, going to the search options, and turning off Show Search Highlights. And that gets rid of that nonsense down there. And we can also go to Windows Update and start grabbing our Windows updates. Only after all the drivers and all the updates are installed, if everything still looks good, then I will go to VIP CDK deals and I will buy a Windows 10 Pro key. And then I will type in activate Windows in the search. It'll bring up a box that says there's no product key installed. There's a button to say change product key, which is the same as saying I want to add a product key. I will enter in the product key that VIP CDK Deals sends me for $15.90 after using the coupon code Carey. And it activates online automatically. There's no need to call Microsoft. There's no hoops to jump through. It just activates. And you'll never need to use that product code ever again. It'll stay tied to your motherboard indefinitely. It's not intended to reuse it or to move it to a different board. A $200 retail key can do that. You could buy many $15 keys. I'd say about a dozen of them before you'd reach the price of one retail key, getting it from VIP CDK Deals. But yeah, Windows servers remember the serial number of your board. And basically, if I ever did a reinstall of Windows 10, would do it the same way, not having a product key. The only difference is if I had it previously activated, after I go to Windows Update and do my first updates and restart, I'll see that my computer's automatically been reassigned the product key and automatically reactivated. It's very convenient. No reason to save your product keys anymore. TWC Kotster wants to know in the chat room, for video production and rendering, is an i9-13900K good since it has 24 cores? Or do you recommend another CPU to be paired with an RTX 2080 or better? Well, video production and rendering is dependent upon the software that you've selected to use for that project. And each piece of software will have their recommended settings, and you sort of have minimum requirements and then recommended. And, the benefits of having more RAM or faster CPU or more CUDA cores may be beneficial in Adobe Premiere and not beneficial in CyberLink Power Director. It may be kind of in the middle on DaVinci Resolve, for example. Then, of course, there's the version of the software. So if we're talking only about the latest version, then what I would do is I would go to a Reddit forum, do a Google search for the name of the software to find a forum where people use that, because those are the people you want to ask, the people who use the product you're using. Because anybody can write any software any way they want to, there is no guarantee that simply boilerplating this CPU and this RAM and this storage combination are universally good for all video rendering is foolish. It's ignorant. So you want to go to a forum where people who use that same software you're using can advise you. And they probably already have a post about it anyway, because I'm sure it's a frequently asked question. And while we're waiting, I guess I can see what our optional updates are here. Forgot this has built-in Wi-Fi, so it's going to grab those Wi-Fi drivers. I think it's safe for me to put camera 1 back up in the corner. I don't think I'll be blocking anything. There I am. Did you miss me? Why not? Douglas Burchell says 67 degrees here in California. Yeah, California's always got that mild weather, right? Southern California, anyway. Bryce Stewart said he had a problem with his Windows 10 key not working, and he chatted with VIP CDK Deals because they do guarantee their product. But you got to do this within 30 days. I mean, come on. Anyway, so he did, and they said to turn off his firewall, and he did, and it worked. And then he turned his firewall back on. What firewall were you using? Because I've never heard anybody ever have to do that. You see, they've got good support. They stand behind the product. Aja Key 82 says, I'm going to ride Windows 10 until the wheels fall off. Well, you've got until the end of 2025. Support will officially end on October 14th of 2025. But you could probably still use it till the beginning of 2026, because at that point, you won't have gotten any updates since October. So you'll go through November without updates, December without updates. And it only gets more and more holes exposed over time. So ideally, you replace it before October 14th. But if you were desperate, you could stretch it to December 31st of 2025. But then you want to switch to Linux, or you want to take it off the internet. I'm sure there's many people that were blacksmiths making horseshoes that refused to buy a car. George wants to know, how do you upgrade your Microsoft Office 2021 Professional Plus in Windows 11? As far as I know, there's no such thing as an upgrade to Microsoft Office. You buy Microsoft Office, and it's only available as the entire product. It's not a discount for being an upgrade. But if you wanted to install Microsoft Office 2021, I have a video detailing how to do that. Just type in YouTube search Carey Holzman as one word, space, Office 2021. And I've got a whole video that walks you through the whole process. Lawn Dog says, thank you, Carey, for putting the CD key. Lawn Dog keeps putting a T in my last. There's no letter T in my name, Lawn Dog. No letter T anywhere in my name. Thank you for putting the CD key sales link in the video description. It looks like I'm going to be needing that discount. I was given a fairly old laptop with an Intel i5. Mitch Hammond says, my grandfather was a blacksmith. Yeah, grandfather. Not your father, but not you. There's still blacksmiths around today, but not like they used to be. Bull142 says, best entertainment on TV or YouTube today. Hey, thank you, Bull142. Flattery will get you everywhere. Joe says, Bing stands for because it's not Google. What do you think of that, camera girl? Bing stands for because it's not Google. You got a chuckle. Sure, the sound suppression probably blocked it. Mitch Hammond says it was interesting you had to use a different slot for the M.2 drive. Well, Mitch, this was covered really in depth back when Intel's 10th generation of chips was released and I was doing my first builds. This was common knowledge, but because I haven't done a 10th generation build in quite some time, I forgot that there were some boards, especially the high-end boards, and this is the extreme after all, where that was commonplace. So I just forgot. But it was something I had already demonstrated 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And I just had forgotten because, you know, we've moved on to 11th gen and 12th gen and 13th gen, and now 14th gen is coming out probably this fall. Peter wants to know, can that NVMe after the BIOS update in another slot, for example, the top one? No, there's no BIOS update that's going to fix that. That's just, if you have an 11th gen Intel CPU, this motherboard is compatible with that. And the CPU itself has to be changed out for that top slot to work. That top slot is using data traffic lanes that do not exist on a 10th generation CPU. So no BIOS update is going to magically put more lanes into your CPU. You have to physically change the CPU to an 11th gen if you insist on using that top slot. John H. said, Carey, we have similar last names, and I've always wondered why people add the T after the Z. I have an unusual name, so I get a little sensitive about how when I'm responding to people and I see how they spell their name. Like if my name was John Smith, maybe I wouldn't think much about it, but it's important to me that I spell their name correctly because I want my name to be spelled correctly. All right, this is ready for a reboot, is it? Let's do it. Finish doing its update here. Ray Cutt joins us and says hello. Welcome in, Ray. Happy 4th of July, everybody. So yes, this build is going to go into an NZXT H510 black case. They're only $82 at B&H Photo. They're sold out at Amazon. And I ordered 2 cases because I've got all these bare motherboards laying around waiting for a home. And I think that a board of this caliber, this is a flagship chip. The 10900K was the pinnacle of the 10th generation for home users. And this is an enthusiast level chip, and I think it deserves an enthusiast level case with an enthusiast level power supply, an enthusiast level RAM, an enthusiast level storage. So it can be customized if somebody wants to order it and they want a different amount of RAM or a different type or amount of storage, obviously to affect its price. If you plan on putting a graphics card in it, then we can put a 750, 850 watt power supply in it. If you're not planning to put a discrete graphics card in it, 500 watt power supply is all you need. It can save a lot of money. So if you're interested in it, you need to email me and let me know. And do know what you're getting yourself into because the value of the parts, well, I will discount it. It's still going to be a pretty high-end system. The good news is the storage and RAM have never been cheaper. The motherboard also, this was a much more expensive motherboard a couple of years ago. They're $200 new now, and that's a good deal compared to what they used to sell for. And it's a very fast, very capable machine. It's not gonna have the Gen 4 compatibility. I don't think it's got USB 3.2 Gen 2, so you're gonna be a little bit behind, but it does have Wi-Fi 6E, which is impressive. Not many new boards even now have that. A lot of times they just do that at Wi-Fi 6 and leave it at that. And let's see, I'll check the email here. Right on. Looks like I'm all caught up. Carey says it needs a video card. So the only problem with a video card really is the price. If we had a video card, you can start at an additional $300 for a pretty low-end video card and go up to $1,800 for a high-end, TI level card. So you could very easily turn this into a $3,000 computer by adding a high-end GPU, but it will absolutely handle it for sure. Checking in with Camera Girl over there. She's busy doing search engine optimization for the YouTube channel. It's got her very busy because there's over 1,800 videos. And you can only do one at a time, and each one has to be customized for search engine optimization to that specific content. So she's got her work cut out for her for a little while. Fred Sunderman said, did I miss what that corner bracket was? The corner bracket is a GPU support bracket to keep your GPU from grouping. And since we're not putting a graphics card in this today, I don't see any reason to add it. I mean, we could, it doesn't hurt anything. There's a couple of places where it mounts on, but yeah, that's all that is. And you know, you can go to the ASRock website and pull up this make and model of board and go over to the support side where the drivers and BIOS are downloadable. And there is a PDF file of the owner's manual right there. And you can look through the entire manual to see all the bells, whistles, and features of the board. But thank you for the question. Why did I go with a socket 1200 motherboard? The reason was because I had this CPU. Basically, someone said, I have a CPU here for a build. I'm not going to do the build. If I had the CPU too long to return it, can I contribute it to the channel? And I said, sure, I'll take it. I'll use it in something. And so it sat on my shelf for a few months. And I thought, you know, I better, if I want to build something with it, I better order a motherboard now because they don't make the motherboards anymore. Whatever existing inventory is out there is all that's left. And then it's going to start getting expensive because of supply and demand. Older parts get ridiculous prices because sometimes you have to have that old part and the seller is just waiting for you. They'll wait years and stick to their price, which could be twice to three times or more what the original price was, because they know darn well that you can't get it anywhere else. You're unlikely going to find it anywhere else anyway. And it's either them or you just go without. So I didn't want to wait too long, and I thought I'll order the motherboard. So then I ordered the board, and then I got super busy. So this project has been on the to-do list for nearly a year. And a year ago, it didn't seem like 10th generation was all that far back, but because I have so much work happening and I don't have any employees, I am the only one that does the work. I have to triage and do what's important first, what takes priority, and other projects sit and wait. And so sometimes a project can take a year or longer from the time it is conceptualized until it is completed, depending on what motivates me to do it. If I'm short on content or I have extra time, that's what this project was for. And that's why it's being done today on a holiday, where normally I would not have a video. I found a way to squeeze this little project that's been waiting in the queue for several months, like I say, about a year, so that I could at least get it started and make sure that, you know, we know everything's functioning and can move forward with finalizing it for sale. Yeah. There's a scale to what I do that may be difficult for a home user to really understand as much as I explain it. It seems like people just can't accept the scale that I'm working at. It's an incredible scale. And what I mean by scale is that you might have a computer or two or three at home. I've got 27, 30 in here, all in various stages of upgrade or installation or just new build, you know, that I'm just for a fun project or whatever. And I can't do all of them at the same time. And while I'm trying to do those, other projects come in daily, whether I'm testing mini PCs or testing routers or other product evaluations. And there's only one of me. So at that scale, things that are not important to the channel get postponed until it's convenient to do them. And the things where customers are paying, those things go to the top of the priority list. Because the customer, if they wait too long, could just take their business somewhere else where they can get faster service. It wouldn't make sense for me to be spending time on a channel project while ignoring a potential paying customer, only to lose the customer because they decided they don't want to wait any longer. Ajaki82 says, would the 2 terabyte solid state drive 5th gen from the Cougar case build be available in the US? So the 2 TB 5th gen SSD did not work in the Cougar case. We had to buy a different motherboard. That's how I got into the ASRock boards. And I don't know current inventory statuses, but I can tell you the T700 from, is it Corsair or Crucial? They make a T700 Gen 5 drive that's faster than the one I used. Because the one I use does 10,000 megabytes per second. The T700 does 12,500 megabytes per second, and it's about the same price. In fact, if I bring up Amazon, type in T700 2 terabyte, looks like it's from Crucial. That's a Gen 5 NVMe. It's $340. And the speeds are up to 12,400 on the reads and 11,800 on the writes. So the drive I have by comparison does 10,000 on the reads and like 9,000 or 8,500 on the writes. So I would buy this one. And then Team's got their 2 terabyte and 4 terabyte Gen 5 drives coming out, which supposedly saturate it at 14,000. I don't think you can go any faster than 14,000 on Gen 5. Maybe 14,500. Not sure what the limit is yet. But if I had to buy a Gen 5 drive today, I would buy this one. You are paying for the speed. If I wanted a Gen 4 drive, I would get the Nanjing 2 terabyte S880. Now that's the same capacity, but instead of Gen 5, it's Gen 4. And with this 10% off coupon right here, it's $82. And it's SLC, and it's using the same RAM or NAND chips and the same controller as the big name brands at a fraction of the price. These are a steal. Really good deal. And if I wanted a 4 terabyte drive, Team makes, what's actually Team Group makes the 4 terabyte Gen 3 drive. Well, this is also a good deal. This Western Digital Gen 4 4 terabyte drive at $299 is $100 off. Well, they'll say it's $200 off, but that's a really good price, and it's been locked in there for some time. These Levin drives are very slow, very, very slow. So you can see they're very inexpensive, 4 terabytes for 154. I wouldn't buy it. Team Group 4 terabyte Gen 3 NVMe. Let's see if that helps pull up the where is it? Maybe I just put the word team and not team, or maybe Team Space Group. Maybe that's how they do it. It's interesting that when I put in the word team, it's showing me everything but team. There's a Team Group one there, but it's like Western Digital and Seagate. Let's just get rid of the word group and we'll just say Team 4 terabyte. They sell out of them? Is that why I'm not pulling them up? That's bizarre. Here it is. This is it. It looks like it's sold out. This MP34 4 terabyte drive was $168. It's only Gen 3. But that's what I'm trying to get across to you, is that you could buy 2 of these and have 8 terabytes of storage that run at, say, 3,000 megabytes per second for the same amount of money as that 2 terabyte Gen 5 drive that runs at 12,500 megabytes per second. So if you want that performance, you're going to pay triple, quadruple the price for the same amount of storage. And it's like that way in the car world too. You know, if you want that extra horsepower, it's substantially more money in return for what you're getting, in my opinion. There's no value there. But for some people, you know, got to have the fastest. It's a very expensive demand. $7,000 speeds from Gen 4. Yeah, so basically every generation has the potential to double the data speed. So if, for example, we're getting 3,600 megabytes per second out of Gen 3 maximum, then you can estimate that Gen 4 is going to be twice that. And Gen 5 is going to be twice Gen 4. So if you're getting 3,600 maximum out of Gen 3, doubling that would be 7,200. You can actually get 7,400 out of Gen 4, totally saturated. You take 7,400 and you double that. Now on Gen 5, the potential is there. The technology is not there yet, but it's going to be soon. Will be 15,000 to 16,000 megabytes per second. When Gen 6 comes out, that should be about 31,000. And when Gen 7 comes out, that should be about 62,000. When Gen 8 comes out, that should be about 124,000 megabytes per second. That's also going to generate a lot of heat, consume a lot of power, and who knows, a lot can happen between now and then that changes the technology into some other desirable format. There's our friend Marvin Jameson joining us. Hey, Marvin, happy Independence Day to you as well, my friend. Always good to see Marvin in our chat room. See how my device manager is doing for stuff. Device manager. Okay, so this PCI device and SM bus controller, we're going to find those at the motherboard manufacturer's website, or I guess maybe on the DVD if we wanted to do that. So this is an ASRock. Yeah, it was same as before. We'll go to the same link as we did before. And this time we're going to go to support down here. And this time we want drivers. So I guess just download. And we want to look for, let's see, there's our Realtek high definition audio driver. We can grab that even though we don't really need it. We're good on Intel Bluetooth. The Intel INF driver, we want that for sure. That's a small download. Need, don't need, shouldn't need this or that. Don't see the serial I/O driver here. Now these do say Windows 11, but they should be Windows 10 backwards compatible. Usually they are. We'll find out the hard way. The ASRock motherboard utility. It's our Super I/O. We could go up here and select Windows 10. It's probably the same files. And then once those are downloaded, we can go to the downloads directory. Downloads. Open this first one. Extract it. Whoops. Here, extract all. Set up chipset. And as that installs, we might even see the device manager hide those things, or not hide them, but take them away from the attention list. Doesn't have drivers, so we get that little yellow hazard triangle on them. Yeah, see that? They're both gone now. Just that one driver was all we really needed. The reason I downloaded the Realtek driver package is there's some Realtek software That's nice to have, that you may not get full featured from the Windows Update, but it'll work from Windows Update. It just may have some added features in the software from the manufacturer. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But it's all free and only takes a minute. Douglas Burchell with a $5 super chat says, Happy 4th, another great show. Well, again, thank you, Douglas. All right. I think that's going to wrap it up for today's show. I don't think there's anything else we need to cover since I don't quite know yet how I'm going to configure this. It kind of depends on when I get a buyer for it. And then that's generally when I know what kind of case to put it in, what size power supply I'm going to need, whether or not we're going to be sticking with an air cooler or changing it to a liquid cooler. That all depends on the customer who buys it and what their preferences and budget are. So I think I've taken this about as far as I can take it. We've been live a little over 2 hours, which I think is a good run. And I'll give you guys just this moment here. If you want to ask me a question, well, I check for updates one more time. And if you guys have questions, I'll stick around. If you don't have any questions, we'll wrap it up. So that looks all caught up. I usually turn these notifications off, but crazy. Clear all notifications, manage notifications, disable notification. Then if we go back over here, I want to get rid of this icon, unpin it, unpin that one, and I'll go in the control panel and take some of the apps off that are installed by default that I don't want. $20 super chat from Marvin Jameson. Hey, Marvin, thank you so much for that. Thank you for supporting the channel. Yeah, we're going to take off Groove Music. And we'll take off Mixed Reality Portal and Movies and TV. Sales presentation for Microsoft Office. I don't want that. Skype, I don't want on there. If a user wants it, it's downloaded for free. Microsoft OneDrive, I don't want on here. Once again, if a user wants it, they can download and install it for free. But it starts every time with the computer, whether you use it or not. And those are resources that you could be using yourself. We'll take out Xbox here and Xbox Live. Xbox Game Bar cannot be removed. And that I can put on VLC. It's going to be our media player instead of the Microsoft one. And we can run the Samsung Magician install. Oh, this is the NVMe driver. We can put that on. Let's make sure this one finishes first. Good. Close, close, close. Next, accept the license agreement. Replace the NVMe driver and then reboot to activate the new NVMe driver. As soon as this comes back up, I'll put the Samsung Magician software on, and we'll check and make sure there's no firmware update or Samsung Magician software update. Got to agree to this and this. Brett Sunderman says, Happy Independence Day, everyone, and thanks, Carey. The rain has finally stopped and I can begin grilling. Yeah, I think I'm going to grill too. And we'll start the Samsung Magician and see our drive health. What is this? Was that like a weather thing, a heat advisory? Is that what I'm looking at? 214 gigs have been written to the drive. Sleep, we just did that today. Serial number, Samsung NVMe drive, NVMe driver, I mean, Samsung. And then under update, we'll see if there's any updates. You are currently running the latest. You are currently running the latest. Okay, perfect. Then of course I can run Uncle Carey's Windows 10 optimizer. And then I can go to VIP CDK deals, buy a Windows 10 Pro key for $15.90, type that key in, and activate online. Then that computer is forever activated unless I change the motherboard. Or if I force the key onto another system, then it's no longer going to renew if I do a reinstall on this system, and I'll have to go back and buy another key again. So if you think you're getting away with something by reusing the same key and it just happens to work, do know that you're not really getting away with anything. As soon as you have to reinstall again on the original system you activated on, it won't activate anymore. It won't let you move it again. So you will have to buy a separate key. Just so you know, may not be the freebie you thought it was, but at $15.90, it seems a very little reason to do that. You know, if there were Microsoft prices, then I would agree, you know, they're still massively overpriced in my opinion. But in this case, why would you do that to yourself for $16? I usually get rid of these things too. I unpin these items so my start menu can be skinny. And once again, an end user can drag whatever they want over here or use the pin option to build this up if they prefer to use it. I prefer not to use it. I don't like how much screen space it takes up when I open my start menu. So by simply unpinning this, it's all still installed. It's just that it looks more like the traditional start menu that I'm accustomed to. So these are just personal preferences that I have. And as we see, if we go to the My Computer icon and go to Properties, we can verify that we do see the 10900K CPU. It is seeing 32 gigs of RAM. Some of that RAM is needed to use the onboard integrated graphics built into the CPU. So that's why 31.6 is usable. That 0.4 is already in use by our video card. There's our Windows 10 Pro version. And of course, in the device manager, if I right click on the start menu, go to device manager, we should have no errors in here, no unidentified items. Everything is happy. That's what I want to see. Under network adapters, we should see both the Wi-Fi adapters, the Intel 219, as well as the Realtek 2.5 gig Ethernet controller. There's the Bluetooth adapter. There's the Intel Wi-Fi AX210, Wi-Fi 6E. All the drivers are there. So that was really easy. One of the benefits of working with technology that's a little bit older is a lot of the drivers are now available automatically through Windows Update. But if you buy the latest and greatest, a lot of times you've got to put things like your communications driver for your, say, your network card. You've got to put those on manually. That requires a bit more technical familiarity to know how to do that by using another computer, copying it to a flash drive, or being more creative by plugging in a USB Wi-Fi adapter temporarily, or a USB to Ethernet adapter where you can use drivers built into Windows, but you wouldn't know that if you didn't normally work with computers on such a regular basis that you were that familiar. So do bear in mind when you're making your purchase, if it's something you're building yourself, you're going to spend more for the latest and greatest, and you have to do more manual work to get it all configured because it's so new, it's not ubiquitous yet. So if you wait a year after a chip comes out or a new motherboard comes out, it will be easier after a year Certainly after 2 years, it'll be even easier because they continue to propagate Windows Update with newer drivers that match what was out 2 years ago. It takes a while. Or you can just use whatever you want and do all the updates by hand, which is just the way we used to have to do it. Windows Update never provided drivers. Or when it did, sometimes they were often wrong and you didn't want them. So Microsoft has come a long way with that. They've made building computers so much easier. But you can save a lot of money and save a lot of frustration by not buying the latest and greatest. There's more value in technology that's a year or more old. I wouldn't go more than 4 years, but certainly a year, 2, 3 years. The older it is, the less it's worth, it's depreciated. And yet the more common all those drivers and everything have become, so they're not so difficult to find. And in many cases, Windows Update will now have them, whereas when the board first came out, they didn't. So things to keep in mind. And the heatsink is on sale too. The Mugen 5 Black is usually $65.99 here in the USA. It's been $58.99 for the last couple of weeks. However, it temporarily did go back up. And I thought, well, so much for that. That was fun while it lasted. But then it came back down again. So you never know how long they keep these sales on. And I would suggest for things like power supplies, heat sinks, or computer cases, they really don't depreciate. So if that's something you're thinking of buying because you're going to build in the future and you want to get a few pieces now, don't buy a solid state drive, a motherboard, a Wi-Fi card, a CPU. That stuff depreciates like crazy, and there's always new stuff coming out that renders the other stuff obsolete. But power supplies are pretty much the same now as they were 20 years ago, or at least 10 years ago anyway, with 80 plus ratings. And then of course the heatsink is going to be great unless some new socket type comes out. And it's pretty much not going to depreciate. If anything, the price only goes up on heat sinks and power supplies. And the same with cases. So you got to figure in inflation. And then of course, if some other pandemic hits, which nobody saw coming, well then good luck finding anything as you've already experienced. And it could take a while for things to be replenished as we've already experienced. I think that's going to wrap it up for me for today. Thank you, camera girl. Thank you to all my friends in blue and in green in the chat room for supporting the channel and for being awesome examples of just how amazing this community really is. And for those of you who aren't blue or green yet, well, I hope you continue to join us and become a regular member. And I'm not going to do the Prime 95 on this. I've changed my mind. I think at this point, it's running so quietly. The fan's not ramping up at all. I'm not worried about it. If somebody is interested in buying it and it's conditioned on what it's going to do in Prime 95, then I'll run it. But I can't see any reason, honestly. It's an unrealistic test. It's not. It's more of a curiosity, right? Would the Mugen 5 keep the 10900K cool? I'm going to guess it's not going to, not at that level of abuse. But I wouldn't know until I try, and honestly, I really don't care. I'm more interested in things that really matter, which is, you know, if somebody's looking to buy the system, what their budget is and what they want, and I'll accommodate them. So well, that way we can wrap this up. We're already 2.5 hours, and that's why I'm just running out of time. But I appreciate you reminded me. But in any event, I want to say thanks again for everybody who has contributed during today's live feed, which I have somewhere over here. Where's my activity list? Mark Gaines, Craig Casabona, Paul O'Brien, Jeremy the Red, Ben Laird, Paul M, Garfield Rupe, Douglas Burchell, and Marvin Jameson. Thanks you guys so much for those super chats and for supporting what I'm doing here. And in email, we'll check one more time, see if I'm missing anything. Thanks again to Avery Ramstor for the Amazon gift card. And Frankie B for the Zelle contribution. You guys rock. I hope you guys have a safe, happy 4th of July. And I will see you all again very, very soon. I have appointments tomorrow. So I don't think there will be a video tomorrow. I also have appointments on Thursday. So I am planning to be live on Thursday, but it may be later than the normal start time, or it could be on the normal start time, depending how long that appointment lasts. And then, of course, every Friday at 1 o'clock, we always do a live video here, 1 o'clock Pacific time. I hope you will join us then. And every Monday at 1 o'clock Pacific time are members only videos where the members and myself hang out and chat. And those are much smaller videos, 40, 50 people in the chat room. And we get to sort of be informal and hang out and get to know each other a little better. And it's low pressure. Give them a sneak peek of what I'm working on. Sometimes some content that is for them isn't aired to the public, or other times it's aired to them first and then the public can see it later. And that's just my way of showing my appreciation to the people that pay the $9.99 a month to be green, to be members. They have the little gold circle next to their name, and that helps finance all this work I'm doing. So much appreciation to them, because without them, much of the content you're watching would not exist. So that'll wrap it up for me for today. Thanks for hanging out. Happy 4th of July, everybody. And I'll see you all again very, very soon. Until next time, bye for now.